Are we on air? Good afternoon, Kofifi listeners. Sorry, apologies about that, but we just shuffling around a little bit because one of our guests today is joining us via the telephone. Mr. Miles will have, those of you listen to him, will have told you that today's show is, it's difficult to give it a title, but basically it's about the violence, the brutal violence that it's not emerging. I guess it's always been there. I guess it's always been there. But now it's maybe receiving the attention that it requires. On the line, we've got from the Wit School of Psychology, we've got Renato Gericka, and we've got from the Men's Forum, Tlantla Zwane, and we've got a surprising guest with us today, whom I welcome with open arms, Magauta, who's a published author, and she'll tell us a little bit more about herself. Do you know if we've got Renata on the line? Renata is ill, so she'll only be with us for about 30 minutes. So we'll try to maximize what we can get out of her. Renata, are you on the line? Hello? They haven't called her. Ntlantla and Magauta, please, if you could join us by talking to the Kofifi listeners. But before we do that, this is an interactive forum. So our WhatsApps are 071-425-9577. Facebook, Kofifi FM 97.2. Twitter at Kofifi FM _972. Instagram at Kofifi FM. And on YouTube, Kofifi TV, Conversations with Rosemary. And on that note, thank you very much. I know that the social development called you at the last minute, and that's because I called them at the last minute. Are we, what's that, camera? Let me read. Let me just put on my glasses, excuse me. Number 4, what number 4? I don't know what you're talking about, but anyway, sorry. Please, Tlantla and Magauta.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting us. I think it's about time that we talk about these social ills, and we are looking forward to a very informative conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting us. It's really an exciting time for us to be giving these social ills a voice.
Now, Tlantla, can you tell us a little bit more about the Men's Forum?
Yeah.
You know, interestingly, this morning, a colleague of mine was saying, Rosemary, with all due respect, where are the men?
Yeah. Men are around, and men are doing their best to come. And
But what is the Men's Forum?
Men's Forum is a men's organization or movement that has been put together by social development. They have the insight in the department, and they also are coordinating other men's organizations to form one voice from men. So it is led by social development, and then many other organizations. Like, for instance, I'm not working for social development, but I have a men's movement called MOG. So we are also working together with social development.
But what do you do?
What we do, we empower men, basically. We empower men to bring a positive change in the area of their influence. We try and develop men the way they should be developed. Yes, and we have a past, we have a history of confusion, and we did whatever that we had to do to change our lives and become responsible citizens, and we are sharing that experience with other men.
When you say you had a past, are you saying that these are men who were abusers?
Not probably some of them were, but mostly are men. Like, for instance, I had a criminal past.
Oh,
Yes.
I see what you mean. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So I had to move out of the life of crime to become a man who is responsible, who's leading his family, who's leading his community, leading wherever, bring a positive change wherever I go. So I've been doing that for years, and and I became part of a social development men's forum based on the work that I was doing.
Makhauta, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
I am an author. I'm a lot of things, but I'm a South African woman who's been raped at gunpoint by somebody I know. So I know this very well. I know the pain very well. And I thought that because I had dealt with my pain and I had healed, I had forgiven, I had confronted the men who raped me, I thought rape will never ever be one of the things I'll ever have to deal with in life. Up until recently, when women were now really being raped, every left, right, and center, and I thought to myself, if I have healed and moved on, I don't think that is enough for me to just say, okay, my life is in order now, I'm okay. Let me just do what I've got to do to just survive. I decided to go back into the arena and start fighting again and saying, mainly to women, those that have been violated, to children that have been violated, somebody will believe your story. Just be bold enough and tell somebody. If your family doesn't believe you, strangers like myself will believe your story, because I don't think children can make up stories of being sexually violated. It's impossible for a child to come up with a story like that unless there's an adult behind them who's sort of coaching them. So I decided to just encourage people that have been violated. So what I find interesting at the moment is that at least most people are saying, I've been physically abused, I've been sexually abused. At least you get a few people that are beginning to talk and are beginning to give this pandemic a face and a voice, because for the longest time, it had no voice, it had no face, because there's so much shame that is associated with being raped. When you tell people that you've been raped, it's almost as if
you've got some communicable disease.
Exactly. They look at you and they don't want to be associated with you. They don't want to talk about it in public. The only thing that they'll ever be able to do is to maybe send you a message and say, you know what, when you said this and that, you spoke to me. And I believe that we are making some kind of progress. So I have come back in the rape field as an activist, you know, to say, this is enough. This has to come to an end. But this is what I have found. A lot of people are talking about this on Facebook, and Facebook is not the best place to start. Our homes are the best place to start, because all of us, and I'm very bold in saying the statement, all of us know somebody who is an abuser. Either we know somebody who is a physical abuser, who is boxing his wife or his girlfriend on a daily basis, and we are quiet about it. The issue is, at the moment, South Africa is filled with hypocrites. Nobody wants to stand for the truth. Nobody wants to tell the truth. But we are too bold on Facebook. Who are we changing really on Facebook? Who are we changing really on social media? Except for if we were bold enough to go back to our own brothers and say to them, you can't continue to be one of our own if you insist on this behavior and you don't go out there and seek for help.
Now, on that, I don't know if they've got Renata on the line for me yet. Hello? Have you got Renata on the line? Hello, Renata? Hello? Hello, where's Renata? I don't know what's going on at the back there, because she's a clinical psychologist.
Yeah.
And Nhlanhla, I'm going to direct this. What's happening with Renata? Nhlanhla, I want to direct this to you as the only man in here today and representing the men's forum. What has gone wrong with the men in South Africa? I won't say South African men, I'll say men in South Africa, because it's not always just South African men. I mean, I've been reading about this. South Africa is the second unsafest country in sub-Sahara Africa. 52 people are being killed, are being murdered every day. That's like a country at war, where 52 people get killed every day. 2 in 3 women are physically abused. We won't even, there's femicide going on, there's infanticide going on. But it's not just about the rape and the murder of women and children.
Yeah.
It's the brutality of it all.
Yeah.
It's a couple of weeks ago, 7 men rape a woman, beat her with bricks, and then burn her. Before that, we had that case in Huddle Park where those men tied people up and drowned them after they had raped this girl.
Yeah.
Now we've got a 15-year-old girl killed and burnt by a 32-year-old man.
Yeah.
Primary school boys raping a 2-year-old child. A 40-year-old man raping and killing a 3-year-old child. And maybe let's talk to Renata first, because I believe we've got her on the line now. I want to know, what is it that's causing this? The two gentlemen that were killed in Pimville trying to protect those women that were being robbed. The woman farmer in Walkerville who had holes drilled into her knees and her feet, that brutality. The farmer that was stabbed with a pitchfork and set alight. It's not enough that they rob you. It's not enough that they rape you. It's not enough that they kill you, but they must torture you. Renata, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Welcome. We've gotten Tlantla from the Men's Forum and Mauchaut, I'm sure you heard her. And can you, as a clinical psychologist from the Wit School of Psychology, by the way, has your profession tried to understand what's going on?
Yes, but I think maybe just to, as a preamble, just to say, I mean, it's a very complicated, multifaceted issue. And so there are many different ways in which we can try and understand it and similarly intervene. I mean, I think maybe just first to say we are, unfortunately, and I mean, we're speaking now for South Africa, a very, very angry country with incredibly high levels of rage and aggression that's very disturbing, and all, from all the descriptions you were given now as well, incredibly overwhelming for anyone to try and comprehend. And I think, I mean, there's a number of things we can think about in order to try and unpack it. I mean, the one is, and I don't know if this has been brought up already with your guest, but hegemonic masculinity within the South African context, where men are seen to still occupy the more dominant position, and obviously that's also then enforced physically, and women as more subordinate.
But sorry, Renata, for me, it's going beyond the femicide and then the infanticide. It's about, because even when they kill other men, there's this brutality. It's they torture people.
There's a sadistic
pleasure.
Yes. And I think you're absolutely right, because I think we actually need to think much earlier on, and we need to actually start to think about how we parent. And just as and this is not to lay blame anywhere, it's just to try and understand what's happening. Because I always do believe, and I absolutely believe this, and I teach it to my students always, that I think everyone parents to the best of their ability given their own histories and their own limitations. But I think one of the things that we're not doing enough is that we're not emotionally parenting children. Whether or not you are actively involved in parenting your child will grow every year, they will get older every year, and one day your young child will grow up to be a man or a woman. But whether or not they've been emotionally parented is something entirely different. And so what we are seeing is we are seeing rage, and we are seeing people growing up who don't know how to regulate their emotions.
Sorry, Renata, what do you mean by emotional parenting?
Emotional parenting is being aware of your child's emotional needs, learning to listen to and understand what your child is feeling, and that it's really, really important right from the beginning to help children know what they are feeling, because what we don't seem to understand is we assume, and this is, just for the generally as lay people, assume that children know what they are feeling, but actually they don't. So you have to start right from the beginning in helping them to identify or label what they are feeling, and just say, I can see that you're getting really cross right now. what is making you cross, to try and understand what you're feeling, then to find acceptable ways to express your feeling, and learn to manage them or regulate them. I mean, maybe just what I think is, obviously, when I was just thinking about it now a bit, and in play therapy we have 3 rules, and I think this is quite useful because we can generalize it to the world around us. And these rules are: I'm not for hurting, you are not for hurting, and the toys are not for breaking. So it's that, and that's something that we still need to learn within our society at large. Is that I'm not for hurting and you're not for hurting. But how can I express my anger? It's not that we're not going to have angry feelings. How do I express it? But also what you were pointing to now is it's more than just the anger. There's a rage, and we need to understand where that rage is coming from, and the pleasure in hurting someone else. And I mean, I think that stems from, unfortunately, emotional neglect often. Or if you haven't had your needs adequately met, you're not and empathized with, you're not going to be able to empathize with someone else. And that is worrying.
Nhlanhla, you wanted to add to that?
I think she has nailed it. We are dealing with so many underdeveloped men.
When you say underdeveloped, what do you mean?
I mean exactly what she just explained.
The emotionally underdeveloped.
Yes, emotionally, spiritually, and intellectually. we make. I think we need.
Nhlanhla, you were a criminal.
Yes, I used
Why?
to. Because I was underdeveloped.
Oh, because I'm listening to you now and it doesn't make sense.
You know what? We need to engineer the society. Because you know what we have done? We ignored everything. We cut down the social structures that developed young men. We gave them education, which is limited. And now we find men who cannot regulate their emotions.
Mahauta doesn't look too happy with you. You'll respond.
Right? We gave them education. Education is limited. It can only give you a template to produce certain work. But it does not help you to become a human being.
Is it what Renata is talking about, the emotional
development? Because we have educated people, but we have underdeveloped people. You can be educated and be underdeveloped. So you need to be educated and developed. And how do you develop young men? First of all, you need to create problems for them so that they are able to solve them. Right? That is why people need the rite of passage. The rite of passage is very, very important because it makes you lose the individualism and narcissism, and it forces you to think of another person, of another entity, so that you can relate with another entity and appreciate when that entity does not respond based on your will.
But Nhlanhla, what I don't understand is 20 years ago or 25 years ago, we didn't have this level of brutality and these levels of violence against women and children. It was there.
Yeah.
We're not saying it's a new phenomenon.
Yeah.
It was there, but not the levels to which we are seeing it. And when it did happen, society, the broader society, condemned those people.
But now we have created a selfish society. That's the problem. As Mahauta was saying, that people will only scream on Facebook, but they'll never move. They'll never move. Like, for instance, when we did that march of echoing the cries of the violated, pastors wanted to be paid to come and raise their voice and do what is they are supposed to be doing. So that's the nature of the people we have these days. We have people who will say, you are raising a social concern, right? And somebody says, organize me transport so that I can come. So it means they are not moved. They just want to be a number. And we said, we're not going to rent a crowd. We will invite those who are seriously concerned, because we want people who will lay their lives down to make sure that this illness is dead. So the point I'm making is that 20 years ago, we had parents who stopped parenting and they climbed up corporate ladder. There's a study that says parents are more educated than children these days. So it means they've stopped parenting, they ran after education. And these are the results.
I'm getting a little bit worried about the trajectory of your discussion because you seem to be condemning the pursuit of education.
I am, actually.
Can I just come in? Can I just come in there? Here's the thing. How can they parent properly and be emotionally there for their children when they are modern day slaves? Which time would they be able to do that? They don't have time.
But why is it the men that are angry?
Because they are most neglected.
By who?
By the parents. By the fathers are drinking in the bins.
No, but are displaying these attributes.
Because women are displaying it differently. They have their way of displaying it. They have their way of abusing children at home emotionally and otherwise at home. It's just that it's not as brutal as men, because men are physical. Men are out there. They are showing their brutality physically on the street. But what I'm saying is everybody is sick. We need to be healed as a nation.
Renata, what have you, as a psychologist, what have you got to say?
Sure. I think, I mean, I wouldn't support that you know, that it's women going into, you know, corporate that is the problem. I think it's more what I was saying earlier, that it's about being in the emotionally attuned, sensitive, responsive parent that we need. And you know, and this applies to men and to women, that children need their parents, whatever the family looks like, and they need parents who make them feel secure and safe and loved in the world. And if you have that, and that's internalized inside of you, then we won't have the sorts of problems that we see in our society today. And certainly our society doesn't contain our families either. We need to provide our families with a lot more support, and particularly in the early years when, you know, the years 0 to 6, they're a particularly sensitive time in a child developing a sense of safety and security in the world, and learning how to regulate your emotions. And we need to fund that early development and early development centers a lot more. We need to give education, and as well as more education, not just to parents and supporting them, but also to healthcare providers in terms of looking out for signs and symptoms of a family that is struggling, so that they can get this kind of support that they need. And if we strengthen that foundation, we won't see the sorts of the kind of sadism and rage and abuse and violence that we're seeing in our society today. Yeah, so that's where I would come in.
But sorry, in Tlantla, your argument, and to some extent yours, Magauta, South Africa is not the only country where people are moving into the corporate world. It's happening all over. It's a global phenomenon. But the thing is, these unprecedented levels of violence that we are seeing are not manifesting themselves in other countries.
Look, probably they have a better media to hide them. But then,
No, there's nothing that's being hidden. I mean, the survey says South Africa is the second most dangerous country in sub-Saharan Africa.
But who's doing the survey?
No,
and
we're not questioning.
Instrument?
No. You see, this is the problem I have. When people start not wanting to internalize the problem, it's what Magauta is saying. It's easy on Facebook. Yeah. But internalize it and let your voice be heard. Don't find excuses for it.
My challenge is this. I don't have a problem with corporate. I don't have a problem with... I am worried about the system we are using to develop our young children. Because
is there a system? I mean, Renata here is talking about the home environment, the emotional development.
We've just asked which home do these children genuinely have?
Go to.
If all of us, if both my husband and I leaves home at 6 o'clock in the morning and we are only back home at 7 o'clock in the which which home are we talking about? Which
Exactly.
time
That's what I'm
do you
talking about.
genuinely have with your children? When do you get to see them? When do you get to see when they cry, why they cry, what they cry about? So, and you look at an average, because most of these crimes, let's face it, they are committed by majority black men.
Well,
Right.
black people are the majority in the country. So it's obvious the majority would be by the majority.
I hear the
Yeah.
technicality. I'm just saying it the way it is. So at the moment, you look at an average black woman and black man. What time do they leave home? Most of them leave home around 5 in the morning. Most of them come back home around 7 in the evening. When do they get to see their children? And these are the very children that are in Nyaupe at the moment, who are enabled by the drugs that they have found solace in, enabled by those drugs to go out and be as brutal as they are. Because obviously when somebody is that brutal, it means there's something else that has possessed that person to be able to be that inhuman. Because it would take you to be that inhumane for you to be able to kill a person in that way and be intentional about it.
But
so we need, look, whether we like it or not, we've got a past that does not assist us.
And that is
Ndandla
not
said something
addressed.
interesting earlier on, that we do not have social structures anymore. Back in the days where I grew up, we had some social structures that used to help, where you knew that your home is not the only place where you can find help and assistance. Right now, everything is individualistic. For you to be able to access a family member, you need to have a code to where they stay. Back in the day,
That's
we,
the
we,
mission.
we did not need any codes.
But I go back to the point that we are not the only country that is going through this or has gone through it. And that's why I'm asking, why is it that in South Africa we have the situation? Rapid urbanization happened already in other countries, but they didn't see this level of brutality. It is happening in other countries, and they're not seeing this level of brutality. And I'm trying to figure out, Renata here, what is it in our psyche? Because Magauta, you started off by saying that man that boxes his partner is somebody's son, somebody's brother, somebody's relative.
We've lost Ubuntu.
And-
They are giving us systems we do not understand. They're
Who's
giving
they?
whoever it is that has built the kind of systems that we currently live in, whoever it is that has given us the codes that helps us access our own
But
family members.
we're not the only African country undergoing rapid urbanization. It's happening all over the continent. But the brutality that we're seeing here, and that's why I'm saying it's not. I'm not saying South African men. I'm saying in South Africa, because the recent case we had of the 22-year-old pregnant girl that was raped by 11 men, the newspapers are saying it was 11 foreigners. So it's inside our borders. Wait, Renata, this is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
What is it that inside our borders that's perpetuating this kind of behavior?
It's accepted. Unfortunately, look, like I do want to reiterate that the foundation has to be early parenting, and you do then need available parents, and that is hard for a lot of parents. But also in terms of work hours and so on. But also there is unfortunately an implicit condoning, and this is not for all men, but amongst many men within our country, that women can be treated a certain way. I remember there was research done, and it was done anonymously. They sent it out to, I can't remember how many men who completed it anonymously, and it looked at whether or not there were fantasies of rape, and it was very high. It was very high, and also for some men they said that rape was a way of male bonding, and sometimes it was also just out of boredom, which I think
this is the thing I don't get, Renata. How do 11 men get together and say, let's go and rape that Magauta? How, I mean, all 11 of you, what is it in their psyche?
Well, I mean, there's a complete disconnection from her. She doesn't. She ceases to exist as a person. She just becomes an object. And whether or not it's because
Exactly.
you're dealing with someone who might have psychopathic traits. And just to reiterate what I said earlier as well, that I mean, your psychopath is not born but made.
Ah,
If you were not empathized with from infancy through your childhood, and your feelings were not respected, and you as a person was not treated with respect and integrity, how are you ever going to learn to treat someone else with respect and integrity
course.
and be able to empathize? So either you're dealing with high levels of psychopathy, or you're dealing with traits thereof. That you can overstep that boundary that for most of us would not even be something you could conceive of.
Yeah, I think we all agree that the early childhood development is key. We agree. But the question that we should ask ourselves is that what is stopping us from actually developing children at that age? Because you find the early childhood development centers overcrowded, you find underdeveloped teachers leading.
but isn't that the anomaly? We call them early childhood development centers. Are they early childhood development? Are those people that take care of those children trained?
Not enough. Not enough.
I
No.
believe so. I believe it's not enough as well. What I'm trying to say is that we need to, like from the work front, the government should enforce the laws of people who wants to take care of their families to be given that chance to do so.
By
Because
doing what?
by giving them time, by giving them, like for instance, I'll make just a very
But they need to earn a living.
that's the problem right there.
What, earning a living is a problem?
You know what? These things, I know they sound crazy, but they are the solutions. We need to be radical about these things. Like, for instance, we organized the march, right? And people said they are coming on the day. And we did that on Friday because we wanted the business to stop so that we make a noise to say this rape thing cannot go on. Because the people who are raping, they also work for these companies. People could not come. Why? Because they were at work. And this is a social ill. So what value do we put on the social ill?
We'll keep paying.
You want to go to work while you are in a chance of being raped on your way back to work. So what values do we put? What comes first? Is humanity coming first, or is the productivity coming first? So we need to answer these questions and be saying, look, human beings are sick, they are underdeveloped, they are in pain. What can we do as a nation to fix that?
And everybody else, I think, should come to the party, because I think at the end of the day, whatever our priorities are at the moment, we will pay for the priorities that we decided to take a couple of years down the line.
Of course.
And,
We
and,
are
and it's
no,
just,
but we are paying.
and we'll continue to pay even more for as long as we are not willing to change, for as long as somebody else feels that somebody else should change and they will not do anything to change the circumstances. If business is saying we want you here for 8 hours and you are staying 75 kilometers away from where you work, we will continue to pay the kind of it will be very costly many years down the line, more costly than it is at the moment, and it is the reality.
But I don't want to bring business into this, because rape is a personal thing.
Of course.
And we're putting the economy there. The economy, it's a choice to go and work, but it's not a choice, because you've got to live, and to live you've got to work. So that's the dichotomy we find ourselves in. But going back, Renata, as a specialist in this field, what intervention can be made in early childhood learning in terms of assisting with emotional development? I mean, we know that the best place for emotional development is the home. But as we've already identified, in a lot of instances, it's not possible because of the realities we are confronted by. So the other option left is early childhood learning. In your opinion as a professional, what role can government play, or learning institutions, or in this case now, corporations in funding this?
Yeah,
Or
I
not
mean,
just funding,
yeah.
not just funding, but what tools can be given?
Look, you can never replace the importance of the bond or attachment that needs to be forged between the primary caregiver and the infant. I mean, that is the foundation of future psychological wealth, health, and the country's wealth and well-being, you know. So just as an aside, I mean, like I think it's in Canada and in Sweden you get a year's maternity leave, you know, because they understand that if you don't get that relationship right, you're going to have all sorts of problems later on in terms of psychopathology and costs, social costs. But yes, we don't have the same kind of wealth, and so it is a very fine line we're not getting right at the moment. But I think you know, we can't dictate to, you know, what business hours might be, but certainly you can't have. I think if you have both parents, where there's two parents leaving at 6 a.m, coming home at 7 at night, those children are unfortunately going to be neglected emotionally during the week. And you need to then think about what is possible, because children need their parents, and particularly in the first 6 years, because that's the time of rapid brain growth and emotional development. You need to have parents who can be available to you, who take time every day to connect with you, to talk to you about your day. What were you feeling? What made you feel sad today? What made you feel angry today? And let's think about, well, you know, understand it, and how can you show when you're angry? What are acceptable ways of showing your anger? And then, like I was saying earlier on, is to make sure that you give all your mental health practitioners that they have sufficient training and knowledge of the importance of early development, emotional development, and what exactly that means. And I suppose what I'm alluding to, because this is also my area, is the importance of attachment. That you need to have strong attachments, because if you forge strong early attachments, you will continue to form healthy, strong attachments to other people in your life.
Now, we are saying that basically we as parents are failing our children. One. Two, the other phenomenon we are confronted by in South Africa, I mean, Renata, you've spoken about the parenting, but the other phenomenon, and I've had an author here where he was talking about, are we a fatherless nation?
Yes.
We've got over 50% of our households that are woman-headed. So is this the disjunct, and it's a uniquely South African phenomenon again, is this the disjuncture that's creating the rise of young boys growing up without good role models?
Can I just say something? The fatherlessness started with our great-grandfathers when they came to the mines.
No, I don't want
let
to.
me just.
I know we've spoken about that context,
Yes.
but now, presently, as we speak, this generation is continuing with that trend. And my question is, does this contribute to this psychosis of young men growing up not understanding how they should behave?
When the bull elephants are not there, the other small elephants cause havoc. This happened in one of the nature reserves, and it happens as well in human lives. So for the fact that there are no fathers and there's so much fatherlessness in our country, yes, there are a lot of organizations that are coming up. You've got That's in the Picture, men organizations that are saying we are going to be there in our children's lives. And you see a lot of men now who are taking their children to crash, who are involved, who are changing nappies, who are doing all kinds of great things. We applaud that and we are aware of that. But at the end of the day, even as things stand now, you still have a lot of fatherlessness. And we should not even ignore for a second where it comes from, and the fact that there's so much work that still needs to be done, because we are talking about decades. Decades and decades that cannot be ignored of how we got to where we are.
No, we're not ignoring the historical context of the migrant labor system. But what I'm saying is that today, as we speak, we don't have people migrate out of choice now. And they're not restricted to not bringing their families with them. And when we start looking at
But
the
they don't
abu-
have role models. I think that's where the
Yes.
problem is.
No,
You are trying to be a
Yes.
good father, but you really don't know what a good
How?
father looks like because you've never seen one.
But then are we, the women, telling the boy child or the young man, your brother that abuses his girlfriend or his partner or your son, are we telling them that this is unacceptable?
See, the
Are there enough of us telling them that?
There aren't
Exactly.
enough women telling the truth. Because at times you find that most of the women are too bitter dealing with their own issues to be able to say, all of a sudden, most women are saying they deserve to be appreciated as men because they are the only people that have been in their children's lives. And I normally say, if you do not have that part in your body that makes you a man, you cannot claim that you have been a father to your child, both a father and a mother to your child. So we need to stick to our lanes as women as well. I see you are very confused. On Father's Day, you get a lot of women saying...
No, I'm not confused.
Yes.
I'm saying
yes.
I'm looking at you because the truth is women are playing that role.
You can't. We don't have what it takes to play the father.
No. You don't understand where I'm going
Okay.
to with this. What I'm saying is we are forced to play that role. We might not be equipped to play it, but we are forced to play it because of the absence.
the social imbalance.
Because of the absence of the other gender.
Yes, but
But
the
now,
question is...
Nhlanhla, I want to ask you, why are men reluctant to take that responsibility?
Okay, we are only exposed to men who do not take the responsibility. I'm in a different position because I deal daily with good men who are doing what is supposed to be done. They might not be doing it to the fullness of its potential because they are also limited because they were not fathered themselves. So we as Men's Forum, that's the reason why we started the Men's Forum, to say, look, guys, we have been robbed of being fathered. Let us find ways of re-engineering and rediscovering what it means to be a father. And that's what we are doing. I went to a crash the other day where my son is, and the teacher, they said something that made my heart jump, because she said, the funny thing is that all these kids, they were in potty training level. At all these kids, when they cry or are in pain, they don't call out to their mothers, they call out to their fathers. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. It
That
says
means they have fathers in their lives.
Exactly. Because it means, and when I go there to drop my son, I see men coming in with their children. So it means we are slowly moving in the right direction. So we must not scream too much. We must just scream so that more men do that.
No. We cannot scream enough.
Yeah.
No, we cannot scream. Every
no.
child that gets
the point I'm
abused,
trying to make...
every woman that gets
Yes.
killed, we must stand on a hilltop
I'm
and
talking.
scream.
I'm talking in the context of men coming to the party. I'm saying there is a group of men that is coming in, and they are doing what they're supposed to be
Are
doing.
your voices loud enough?
Our voices might not be loud enough. Remember, we have about 4 ways to deal with this kind of a social ill. We have the preventative measures that we can do. And preventative measures mean we have to develop the young men so that they do not commit these crimes. But we also have the restorative measures, right? And we also have reactionary measures, which is mostly the Facebook and many other things. And then we have the protective measures. So all these people are doing their bit in their different corners. Like, for instance, I belong to a group that specifically deal with the preventative measures so that the young man does not commit the crime. However, the psychologist, for instance, is restorative in his nature. The pastor is restorative and preventative in nature. The police are protective and reactionary. So we must understand that everybody is playing their role somewhere.
Now, as I said earlier on, you've lost some messages, Camry. Well, basically, I do understand that the man and lady, yes, we as parents have become too busy with things outside our family and neglect the importance of our sons and daughters. Our jobs have become a burden in the sense that some of us work Monday to Sunday. We can't even take our kids to church or have a family picnic, sit and do homework. It has become hard, and some are single parents. The single parent issue keeps coming up every time we speak about violence in our society. They've asked the question, who's to blame for the raping? What's happening? Government, if they want, they can put a stop to it. Rapists should be punished. This one's advocating castration, and there's others that are coming in. But I mean, those are extreme measures. Renata, what do you have to say?
Thanks for asking. I wanted to just contribute in what Nafanka was saying in terms of the roles different people fulfill. And I think what fathers have traditionally fulfilled, and this is, it's not that it can only be fulfilled by a male figure, but traditionally and historically they fulfill the law. They set down the law. They convey or communicate what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. So
that it's my house one.
Yes, and you and you will not talk to your mother like that. So there's a certain authority and a power, I think, that men have, and I'm not saying women don't have it as well, but that they have traditionally had, and that's respected traditionally, that is absent, and that's the void that we have by our absent, unfortunately, our absent fathers. And just to clarify, I'm not saying that women can't fulfill that role as well, but traditionally that is the role that has been ascribed to men, and that is respected. So you need men, as Franca was saying, that who are standing up and saying that this is not what it means to be a man. Men don't hurt, men don't harm, men don't rape. And if you do, these are the consequences, and that's the other problem. We don't have enough consequences and follow through.
I wanted to get to the law and order aspect of it. Do you think that a lot of this violence being perpetrated is because people believe they can get away with it, so they just do it with impunity?
In South Africa, you can. I mean, remember, rape,
in your case, Magauta,
I didn't even bother to report it.
Word.
Why even report it if I am going to go through the same ordeal over and over again by other men? Why do it? Why take myself through that? I spared myself. So if people are unhappy with that, most women, we spare ourselves from look.
Now, how many other Magautas
There are so many of us. There are more of us than those who actually have got enough guards to go and report. And here's the thing. Rape is a very emotional, it's an extremely emotional thing. So if you go to court against the very calm man, in a court system that deals with facts, not emotions, who will win? That's the reason why we only have 14% of the convictions. And I believe only 14% of the convictions. That's the reason why men will dare you to take you to court, because they know very well, using the court system, they come up on top.
So, God, I don't know. So, Renata, I come back to you again on the psychological effects of this brutality.
It's devastating. Absolutely devastating. I mean, what Mahawa was talking about. I mean, that's your secondary traumatization. But it takes a very long time to be able to come to a place where you can speak to someone about what happened to you and try and process it, because the shock that someone could do this to you, the intimacy of the violation, it's such an intimate violation, is devastating, and it shatters faith and trust in the world around you for a while. So it's absolutely devastating.
Magauta, you project an image of a very strong woman. Where do you derive your strength from?
From God, I guess. Where else? Where else will I? Otherwise, I would have lost my mind. by now.
How old were you when this happened to you?
I was 20, I think around 22, 23.
When you were supposed to be enjoying your life?
Yes, I was just about to graduate with my teaching diploma at the time, and I'm 42 now, so it's been a while. Thank you for the compliment.
Oh, you didn't see that. She looks like she's in her late 20s, early 30s. Renata, I'm coming back to you.
Yes.
And Mahauta actually.
Sorry for mispronouncing her name.
No. It's on the radio sometimes things distort. Mahauta actually talking about the fact that she was about to graduate as a teacher has rekindled this question I had. There used to be a subject taught in teacher training colleges. And that's why, for me, the demise of teacher training colleges is actually a tragedy. They used to be taught child pedagogics. Do you believe that teaching or empowering teachers with this ability would go some way towards what everybody's been talking about, the emotional development of children?
Yes, you can. I mean, you can only help if and like I don't know the teaching curriculum and what.
No, when there were teacher training colleges, there was a compulsory subject called child pedagogics, and it was about being able to read the body language of the child, understand, their place situation, and basically at that time, I think teachers were seen as almost the behavioral specialists of the children. And now they go to university and they get taught curriculum content, but they're not taught about the psychological makeup of the child or the emotional makeup of the child. Do you think reintroducing something like that would help the parents? Because reality is we have to work.
And I think, like I was saying, it could only be useful to help teachers be aware of developmentally where children are, as well as being sensitive to what a child is feeling, but then also knowing when to refer. When to say, what, something doesn't seem right with Timmy. I'm worried, so I'm going to chat to him and then maybe call his parents in. So it's about also keeping certain boundaries in place, but having the awareness and sensitivity to pick up when something's not right. And of course, what we haven't spoken about, unless I just was in the beginning of the conversation, is about talking to children about what is acceptable and what's not.
No, Mahauta did touch on that.
She?
Yeah,
Okay.
no, but we haven't gone into it because she's talking about the fact that she's talked to a stranger as well about this.
Who?
No, Mahauta had. If you want to talk about it a little more, we'd appreciate it.
Oh, okay. I think it's just very, very important to talk to children from when they're little. And unfortunately, because of the society we are in, and it feels quite alarming to have to think about these things. But it's teaching or talking to children at an age-appropriate level, and not in an alarmist way. But teaching them when you teach them about their body parts, and then you teach about the vagina and the penis, and that no one's allowed. That's not for touching. No one's allowed to touch that. And I also think just to ensure that the message is reached, and it's not these people can, but these people can't, because that becomes very gray and blurred. Rather, just that's your penis. No one touches your penis. Not even sisters allowed to touch your penis because it's private. To have those kind of clear messages, and also to talk to children about, if you feel uncomfortable, not going off with strangers, not talking to strangers, having very clear rules and boundaries in place about what's acceptable or what's safe and what's not. And if you find yourself in a situation with someone who's saying, come with me, or wanting to give you a sweet, saying no and immediately running away, and finding mom or dad or, one or two other safe people that they can go to. And what to do if someone picks you up against your will. And I know these are very hard conversations to have, but we need to have them.
Mahauta?
But I think
we've run
yes,
out of
I
time,
know.
but I know there's something you want to say.
Here's the thing with parents. In most cases, we want to teach kids things that we do not do to them. We give them mixed messages, and that's the reason why it's not that children don't know when something is wrong. It's not that children don't feel uncomfortable when somebody's touching them in their privates, because they are human beings. They know something is wrong about this. But in most cases, as parents, we go against the very things that we teach our children, and as a result, they don't come back to tell us when something fishy is going on. So we dismiss our children when it suits us, and we tell them that if something major happens to them, we will not dismiss them. They will not believe us. They will do exactly. They will behave in accordance to how we have treated them. So if we want our children to be open with us and have these conversations and have our children believe these conversations, we need to start treating our children as human beings and accordingly.
Nhlanhla?
Yeah, I'm just calling out men out there to say, guys, let's come together. Let's find a way. We must not blame anyone for this. We must just recognize that we are in trouble, and we must fold our sleeves and get on to work and make sure that we develop our boy children in the way that they should be developed.
Nhlanhla, Mahauta, Renata,